My sister tried to ruin my wedding. Then my dad gave me a shocking ultimatum. A wedding should be about love and joy, but mine turned into a nightmare. Part 1. Have you ever imagined your wedding day being stolen from you? Not by fate or bad luck, but by someone who should have been standing beside you. That was nearly my reality. I am a 28-year-old woman, and I was marrying Jake, also 28. We'd been together for years, built a life together, and when he proposed, it felt like everything finally aligned. But hovering like a storm cloud over us was my half-sister, Maddie, 26. 6 years earlier, before Jake and I had ever met, he went on a couple of casual dates with Maddie. It ended almost as quickly as it began. He didn't even consider it a relationship. It was simply a few evenings out with someone he realized wasn't a match. But when Maddie later discovered that Jake and I were engaged, she clung to that brief fling like it gave her some sort of claim on him, or on me. Maddie and I were never close. We share the same father but different mothers, and growing up, our paths barely crossed. My relationship with her has always been strained and shallow. Honestly, I didn't want her at my wedding, but my father insisted. "She's still your sister," he said. "Family should be there." He pressured me until I relented. That concession became one of my greatest regrets. From the moment the celebrations began, Maddie turned everything into her stage. At the engagement party, she leaned into people and whispered, "Did you know I dated Jake first?" At the bridal shower, she smirked and asked me in front of others, "Are you nervous marrying someone who used to be with me?" She painted their meaningless fling as though it were some deep, passionate love story that ended in tragedy. I wanted to scream. Instead, I told myself to ignore her. Jake agreed. "If we don't give her attention, she'll stop," he said. But she didn't stop. She escalated. By the rehearsal dinner, her behavior had become unbearable. That evening, surrounded by friends, family, and my soon-to-be in-laws, Maddie made yet another joke about how Jake used to be back when they were together. She laughed as though she were in on a private joke with him, dismissing me entirely. Jake snapped. His voice cut through the chatter. "You know why I stopped seeing you, Maddie? Because you were obsessive. After 2 dates, you were already talking about marriage. You were clingy. You even called my mother behind my back. It was creepy. That's why I cut you off. And now, years later, you're doing the exact same thing. You can't take a hint. That's pathetic." The room froze. Maddie's face crumpled, and she bolted out of the room in tears. My father immediately went after her. I sat there, stunned, humiliated that this drama had exploded in front of everyone the night before my wedding. Later that night, my father summoned Jake and me to his hotel room. His face was tight with anger. "You humiliated your sister," he said. "Unless you both apologize, I won't be at the wedding. I won't walk you down the aisle." His words shattered me. My mother passed away years ago. My father is all I have left. The thought of him abandoning me on my wedding day was unbearable. But the idea of apologizing to Maddie felt like surrendering everything I stood for. She had been tormenting us for weeks, and now I was expected to validate it? I cried all night. Part 2. The next morning, exhaustion weighed on me heavier than my dress. I went to my father's room, my heart breaking, and told him, "I want you there. I need you there. But if you can't support me, then it's better you don't come at all." Saying those words felt like ripping myself in half. I walked away convinced I would be walking down the aisle alone. Hours later, there was a knock at my door. My father stood there, his face lined with regret. "I was wrong," he admitted softly. "I thought I was protecting Maddie, but I wasn't seeing the truth. Jake didn't humiliate her. She humiliated herself. I've told her to leave." Relief flooded me so hard my knees nearly buckled. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt like I could breathe again. And so, when the music started, my father was there. He held my arm, walked me down the aisle, and whispered, "I love you." I clung to those words. My wedding wasn't flawless. It was scarred, bruised, messy, but it was still mine. But the story didn't end with the vows. Maddie left furious, calling me the villain, and went straight to her mother, my father's wife. His wife accused me of tearing their family apart. Maddie refused to return home unless my father demanded I apologize. For once, he stood firm. He told her, "If you can't admit you were wrong, that's on you. I won't let you ruin your sister's life." For weeks afterward, the fallout simmered. My father even stayed with Jake and me for a while to escape the storm at his house. During that time, we talked, really talked, in a way we never had before. He admitted that part of his outburst came from guilt. Guilt for his failed marriage. Guilt for splitting his time between two families. Guilt that Maddie always felt second best. He wanted to protect her so badly that he ignored the harm she was doing. I listened, and I forgave him. But I also told him something important. Protecting one child should never mean abandoning the other. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I know, he said, and I won't make that mistake again. Eventually, he returned home and began marriage counseling with his wife. He told me it wasn't easy. His wife resented me. Maddie sulked. But he finally understood that supporting me didn't mean betraying them. Looking back, my wedding wasn't the fairy tale I had imagined as a little girl. It was filled with arguments, ultimatums, and heartbreak. But in a strange way, it was still perfect. Because I stood by the man I love. Because my father chose to be there with me, even after faltering. And because I learned the most important lesson. Sometimes, choosing yourself is the only way forward. I will never forget the moment I stood at the altar, looking into Jake's eyes, while my father's hand rested on mine. The pain, the drama, the chaos, it all faded. For the first time in days, all I felt was peace. And I realized, that's what mattered. Not Maddie, not her theatrics, not ultimatums, just love. The weeks after my wedding felt like walking through the wreckage of a storm. On the surface, everything looked calm. Jake and I had returned from a short honeymoon, settling into the rhythm of newlywed life. But beneath it all, the tension with my family simmered like an underground fire. My father's wife, Linda, had taken Maddie's side completely. Maddie moved back into their home after storming out of my wedding, but she did so under one condition. She wanted an apology from me and Jake. She told anyone who would listen that we had humiliated her, and Linda fed into her outrage. Together, they painted me as the villain who had poisoned my father against his real family. At first, I tried to ignore it. My father reassured me, "Don't worry about what they say. I know the truth. I was there." But even as he said those words, I could see the exhaustion etched into his face. Every time Linda slammed a door or Maddie threw another tantrum, he aged a little more. 2 weeks after the wedding, he called me late at night. His voice was tired, almost broken. "I can't do this anymore," he admitted. "They fight with me every day. Linda says I abandoned Maddie. She says I betrayed her. I defended you, but it feels like I'm losing my family." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. My heart twisted. I had dreamed of my father being part of my married life, coming over for dinners, playing with my future kids, laughing with Jake. Instead, he was being torn in half by two worlds. "Dad," I whispered, "you don't have to choose between me and them. But you do have to choose what's right. Do you think Maddie was right to humiliate me? Do you think Jake deserved her constant digs?" There was silence on the line. Then a sigh. "No," he admitted. "But family is complicated. I can't just turn my back on her." And there it was. The wound reopened. I realized that even though he had stood by me on my wedding day, his loyalty to Maddie still pulled at him like a chain. A week later, things exploded again. Maddie found my social media posts, pictures from the honeymoon, snapshots of Jake and me smiling, happy, in love. She left bitter comments under them. "Glad you're enjoying your life," while tearing ours apart. She even messaged some of my friends, trying to convince them that Jake was abusive, that our marriage was doomed. Jake wanted to confront her, but I stopped him. I knew exactly what she wanted. Another reaction, another scene, more proof to feed her narrative. So instead, I blocked her everywhere. But Maddie wasn't done. She showed up at our house one evening, uninvited. When I opened the door, she stood there with tears streaking her face. "Do you even realize what you've done to me?" she shouted. "You stole my life. You stole my father. You stole Jake." Her words stung, not because they were true, but because of the raw hatred behind them. I didn't see a sister. I saw a rival, someone who had twisted our family into a battlefield. "Leave," I said coldly. "You're not welcome here." Jake had to physically shut the door as she screamed curses from the porch. For an hour, she stood outside, pounding and sobbing, until finally my father arrived to drag her away. The look on his face, half shame, half sorrow, was burned into me. That night, I realized this wasn't just about Maddie being jealous or petty. It was deeper. She had built her identity around being the center of attention in my father's life. And now, for the first time, she wasn't. She was losing him to me, and she couldn't handle it. As the weeks stretched into months, the cracks widened. My father began spending more time at our place again, using excuses like helping Jake with the yard or wanting to see how the house renovations were going. But I could see the truth. He was running from the chaos at home. Linda noticed, and she wasn't quiet about it. She called me one evening, her voice sharp as glass. "You think you've won, don't you?" she hissed. "You think dragging him into your drama means you get him all to yourself? Let me tell you something. He has a family here. A real family. Maddie and I will always come first." I stayed calm. If you cared about him, you wouldn't be forcing him to choose sides. You'd be helping him heal, not feeding Maddie's tantrums. She laughed bitterly. "You'll see. Sooner or later, he'll come back to us. He always does." That call left me shaking. For days, I wrestled with guilt. Was I tearing him away from them? Or was I finally showing him what unconditional love looked like? Something he hadn't felt in years? Then came the breaking point. One Sunday afternoon, Maddie posted a long rant on Facebook, tagging Jake and me. She wrote about betrayal, about how her ex had married her sister, about how her father had abandoned her. She even included screenshots of old texts Jake had sent her back when they dated. Completely harmless, but twisted to look like he had led her on. Within hours, my phone buzzed with messages. Friends asking if it was true. Relatives calling to demand explanations. Jake's colleagues seeing it online. I felt sick. She wasn't just humiliating us privately anymore. She was destroying us publicly. Jake wanted to contact a lawyer. I wanted to disappear. But my father did something unexpected. He drove to her house, confronted her, and demanded she take it all down. She refused, he told me later, his voice trembling. She said if I really loved her, I'd force you and Jake to apologize. She said she won't stop until you're ruined. I looked at him, searching his face. "And what did you say?" He swallowed. I told her no. I told her if she kept this up, she wasn't my daughter anymore. The silence between us after those words felt heavier than stone. I could see how much it cost him to say it. And for the first time, I realized he wasn't just choosing between us. He was breaking his own heart. The next day, Maddie blocked him. She moved out of his house and into a friend's apartment. Linda blamed me for destroying the family. And my father? He stayed with us again, looking older, more fragile, but strangely lighter. "Maybe this is what needed to happen," he said one night over dinner. "Maybe Maddie has to learn the hard way that love isn't control. And maybe I have to learn that protecting her doesn't mean sacrificing you." I didn't know what the future would bring. Maybe Maddie would cool down and return. Maybe Linda would never forgive me. Maybe our family would never look the same. But as I sat beside Jake, my father across the table, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. The storm wasn't over, but I wasn't facing it alone anymore.